So welcome to this monochrome line and wash painting tutorial for beginners. So what is monochrome painting? Well, as it says, it's painting just with a single colour. So in other videos that I've done, I've used a single ink where the line is the same colour as the painting. And you can see those tutorials somewhere up here, linked in. Whereas with this one, I'm going to be using black ink and then a single layer of watercolour. Now I've used watercolour rather than ink because I think more people probably have watercolours than have ink, so I'm going to choose that sort of dark blue or something like that. There's a wintry scene. There will be a reference image if you want to download that and sketch along with me. That would be great. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so for this little tutorial we're going to need a pencil, a pen. I'm using my little Watercolour Sport fountain pen, an eraser. Always have some tissue on hand just to mop up your tears. So the reference image is up there, and as I said before, it's also available in the description below. So the first thing I'm going to do is quickly have a look at the reference image and sort of plan this. It's pretty straightforward in terms of sort of your horizon line and things. I mean, we can say for the sake of the argument that the bridge runs through the middle. Some of the detail I'm going to paint in, some of it I am just going to draw in here. So here I've got my trusty Watercolour Sport fountain pen, and now I'm going to start lining in some bits and bobs after I've had a slurp of coffee. Really nice. Okay, so that's pretty much our line work done for this. I know that looks pretty rough, but I quite like a rough sketch. I don't like it to be too precious, and actually that's taken quite a lot of time there. So what I'm going to do now is let that dry, or use a hairdryer on it, and then once I know it's definitely dry, I'm going to use the rubber and get rid of the pencil lines. So for this I'm going to be using a mop brush, and I'm going to use my palette here. This is I don't know if you hear that, porcelain palette. And I actually like using porcelain for painting. I think it's a little bit like eating off a plastic plate compared to a porcelain plate. It just feels a bit nicer. So the colour I'm using for this is the Intensities blue. It's Daniel Smith colour. And I think it works well as a super dark, but it also works quite well as a lighter colour. So let me just start by putting some sky in here. Now anybody who follows my channel will know that I love big silly skies, subtlety is not something you would associate with my art necessarily. And I love the fact that that is the case. There's many times in life to be subtle, and when you're by yourself having fun, doing art, it's nice to feel free and feel that you could experiment. So I'm going to put in some water here. Now, because I want the shadow to be over here, and what I might do is put the shadow detail in the bottom here and then lighten up the picture as we go up. So I'm going to get some quite neat pigment, and we're going to drop it in here. Again, straight from the palette, really. Don't be afraid to generate some interesting, contrast. So I'm trying to be a little bit accurate when I go around these components, but because I really want that light to pop. But it really is where the water is rather than where I'm putting the paint. And I'm going to sort of pull some of these bits down here. Right, if I just blend some of that out there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of detail up there, because that's what I like to do. Okay, so that's the sky done. I'm really not going to be too precious about this. Actually, tell you what I might do. Let's do this. Is add a little bit more in, a little bit more tone. So just right there. Okay, so now before I start on some other areas, you might want to use the hairdryer on that, but what we can start doing is laying in some slightly darker values. So I'm going to just dilute this a little bit, and then you don't want to touch any of the areas that coincide with that, but I can actually put in some values for like the bridge, because I know that's a layer 1 in shadow. So let's just put that in. When I say layer 1, I mean you've got various sort of tones in this. Most of this bridge is going to be in tone 1, with the exception, which is like shadow level 1. As you can see, there is a line that runs down here, and I'm going to leave that whole side light there, but then all this is going to be in shadow. Okay, as you can see, I've mixed plenty of paint up there. There we go. And again, that bit there is in, but I'm not going to bother with that line that crosses there. I'm just going to go like that, and it's the same on that side. So it's always good to mix up plenty of paint so that you can just do nice big washes. And again here. And on the top there. There we go. Now, don't worry if you've got little white bits, that's not important. What I could do here now is I could dry off a little bit and start putting in a bit of sort of dry brush details in, just sort of try and express some of the reflections, getting smaller as we get further back. Now there'll be sort of a few different layers of that, I think. You see as the brush dries off, you get this nice sort of broken line effect. And then this is going to be much darker in here, but I'm going to be putting a few different layers in there. A few little spots. There we go. So this is quite a free process. There's not a lot of, yeah, it's not, I'm saying I'm making it up as I'm going along. I kind of am a bit. So we're going to put in some little details back here of these little shadow areas. Try not to get on the people. I'm going to put in just a few little suggestions of windows, but not every one. And there's a line under there where we can put in. Oh, we've missed a lot of windows out up here. Okay. Now some of these trees are going to have a slightly different shadow on some of the bottoms of them, but not on the tops, so you could just lay that in a bit like that. Okay, so I think that's fine for our first layer, and we're going to build up into a couple of different layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hairdry that so that we can go in and do some more. Okay, so you can see here that this is what I want to do now is just do another layer of shadow. So I'll mix a slightly different, slightly thicker of the same, and then start looking at specifically here where the shadows are. Now there's definitely a bit more shadow to put in on the background, but that said, I don't necessarily want to make these too dark because the background wants to be pushed back a little. Now all this is sort of shadow detail here. Leave the people free. And then I've got the whole side of Big Ben here. So that shadow runs down here. Down this side here. There you go. Now a lot of these are going to be dark inside. I'm going to put a little bit of dark just at the top of some of them, and then as we get further down I'm going to darken those off a bit. There we go. There is also some shadow under some of these components, like under that railing, under there, running under there, and then also under here. I'm going to put a little bit more detail in where the trees are, and I might put a little bit more in actually in the Big Ben is the name of the clock. I can't remember what the tower is called, but most people think the tower is called Big Ben, but it's actually not. It's just the clock anyway. So I think that's pretty much done for the background. I don't really want to do anything more on that, but what I do want to do is put in another bit of shadow and things in the foreground to make it all pop and come to life. So I'm going to do another layer of water, because that is really dark in there, and I'm going to bring that out like this, again using that slightly dry brush, dragging it out. There we go. And then I'm going to put another layer in here, and I'm going to go back and put a much darker layer in there as a last sort of thing. I've run out of paint here. Which is a rookie error. Always mix more paint than you need. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is dry that off, and again with hairdryer, lots of hairdryer in this one, and then I'm going to do my last layer. Okay. Back in a second. Slurp of coffee. Okay, so now we're at the final layer with this really. I'm going to mix some really dark pigment and paint in this lovely porcelain palette of mine. And then I'm just going to pick out a few final little details here. So let's go in here. And then likewise here. Now you can see from the reference picture that there is a sort of reflection that runs it's a new pad for me, this comes out from there. Quite dark in there. But as we get further back, the contrast wants to be a tiny bit less, so I'm just gonna dab that in, and then there we go. And then I'm gonna use these just to, again, try and tell the story a little bit of these forms. A little bit of shadow in those bits, a bit of shadow under here, around here. To try and tell the story of these shapes. There we go. And I think finally I might actually try and just do a little bit of even darker pigment just under here. And again in that one, probably overpainting this. If you start putting too many layers on it, it actually loses a bit of vitality. So I'm going to stand up so I can get a proper look at that, see what I think. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to do too much on this. So I hope that makes sense. What I've basically done is I've done my pencil drawing, my line work on top very roughly, and then I've done sort of 3 or 4 layers there of just building up those tones. And I've just been looking at the reference image and seeing what's, squinting my eyes a little bit. That's always good. Squint your eyes a little bit and then it gives you an idea of lights and darks. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. As you can see from the process, it's pretty simple and accessible, and you can practice that. Give yourself time to make mistakes, just relax and enjoy a little bit of play. I would very much appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. As of now, there is no revenue coming from this channel, so this is just me sharing my love and content. Thank you for that. And you could also buy me a coffee. The link is below in the description. And also, if you're looking for a present for someone or some artwork for yourself, head over to my website where there's some of my original artwork for sale. So yeah, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.